Well, it's great to be with you on this blustery Utah morning. I'm reminded of Dr. Seuss's story of Sally and her unnamed little brother, the Cat in the Hat, which begins, if I'm not mistaken, the sun did not shine. It was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. So I'm going to try to be the Cat in the Hat for a moment and try to occupy your minds for a bit as educators and pedagogic experts. And we're going to talk about colonoscopy. So I come to you from the Department of Anesthesiology. Last year, we celebrated our 50th anniversary as a department. We introduced a new theme, Anesthesiology Elevated. We aspire to be as high and as firm as the mountains around us. So I have a very distinct conflict that you'll discover as we go through this talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about a curriculum that we developed for sedation training that resulted in a spin-off company. And so keep that conflict in mind as we go along. Here's the quick outline. I'm going to try to make a case that there's an unmet need for sedation training, that the necessary curriculum has been specified, but that no one is offering that curriculum, and that a virtual preceptorship is a potential solution. And then I'll walk you through, most of the talk will be about this curriculum we developed called Safe Sedation Training, or SST, as I'll call it. And then I'm going to try to point out that this platform, this virtual preceptorship, could be used for a variety of other kinds of training. So overall, I want to argue that a virtual preceptorship can serve as a general model for distance-based learning and could be a solution to certain clinical training challenges. So the goal of sedation training is to equip the practitioner with the necessary skill and knowledge for safe and effective practice. So let's take colonoscopy as the prototype. There's a tremendous need for increased sedation skills because there's such demand for these kinds of procedures. So GI endoscopy is sort of the prototype. There are over 50 million colonoscopies performed annually around the world. 15 million of those occur in the United States. These are done under sedation. And of course, there are many other kinds of procedures that need this kind of sedation, things like bronchoscopies that pulmonologists do, various procedures that other medical professionals such as interventional radiologists do. So there's tremendous unmet need, and almost all of you someday will find yourself in a sedation suite, a procedural suite like this one, where you will undergo some sedation. So we think about sedation training as a Venn diagram. If we represent the set of knowledge and skill of an anesthesiologist, some chunk of that, indicated by this little square, is sedation. And if we represent the knowledge and skill of gastroenterologists, one of their core competencies is sedation. So there's some overlap between what the anesthesiologist does and what the gastroenterologist does. And they develop a lot of skill in the administration of sedation. The goal of training is to make this overlap even more and elevate the practice of the non-anesthesiology practitioners' sedation techniques. Now, I want to just remind you quickly that we're not talking about resuscitation here, like advanced cardiac life support, such as is offered by the American Heart Association. That is not sedation training. This is the training you use when sedation has gone very badly. And so the training we're talking about is the kind of training you need to make it so that you need this kind of training very, very rarely in the course of a sedation episode. Now, this is history's most famous sedation mishap. And of course, it's scandalous, it's salacious, it's an unusual example, admittedly, but the point is well taken. And that is that safe and effective practice of sedation is important. And that's why we offer training. And it's serious business. And people are harmed with some frequency in dental chairs and in procedural suites and in operating rooms because sedation is not being done properly. Okay, so what's the problem? Got to be be sure that we identify the problem. And the problem is, how do we get so many people around the world trained to do this? Because we're talking about hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of practitioners that need to undergo training in order to elevate their sedation practice. Okay, so most medical societies agree on the training curriculum, but few are actually offering it. Training is mostly local, idiosyncratic, and on the job. It's boutique, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, various medical societies, like the society I'm part of, the American Society of Anesthesiologists, publish recommendations about what the training should be. And these ASA recommendations typically form the core of institutional policy related to sedation practice. And various societies, this happens to be the American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy, have published their suggestions about the kind of curriculum that should constitute sedation training. So suggested curricula began to emerge in the mid-2000s. Here's a monograph pointing out that, well, there are suggested curricula out there, but mostly it's not available. And most of the training is just on-the-job training. Reading from one of the articles in this monograph, few endoscopists in the United States receive formal sedation training. Now, fast forward about 10 years, and you have a European society saying, hey, we've gotten together a bunch of societies, and this is the way we think training should be done. And they lay out a fairly comprehensive curriculum that includes a didactic course and simulation and so on. And then they say, well, every country should just do this. The problem is, no one's doing it. So not too many years later, another monograph on GI sedation sort of establishes the regrettable status quo, and that is that in most places the training has not materialized. Formal training courses are not widely available, and these are coming from the training experts in these specialties. That is the sedation experts in gastroenterology. In a similar way, here's another publication. There has not been a competency-based sedation training program implemented. Okay, so a virtual preceptorship is an innovative remote learning platform that can reach the masses of practitioners that need training. So here's the front of our website for safe sedation training. And basically what I'm hoping to do here is give you a sense of how this kind of curriculum could reach lots of people for various kinds of training challenges. And again, we'll refer to this as SST, for Safe Sedation Training. This is a private-public partnership. So 4 faculty, including me, formed this company, and then we partnered with the University of Utah. So the University of Utah owns part of our company, and we market this curriculum. It was supported by NIH SBIR to sort of get the initial program going. It's based on society guidelines. It's a distance-based learning model over the World Wide Web, and it has a modular structure. So the student is dropped into a virtual center of excellence. So that the idea is that the student is going to a center that does sedation well. And there are these various learning environments. So leveraging this virtual preceptorship idea, there are 3 learning environments. It's highly interactive. And it also includes endurable materials, notes, and so on. So the student begins in each module in a virtual conference room. So mini lectures are presented here. These last about 5 to 10 minutes. Then they go into a virtual simulation center that serves as a workshop demonstration to reinforce what's been learned. Here's a close-up of the mannequin in the virtual simulation center. The mannequin and all these other objects are interactive. So, for example, you can blow up the monitoring screen and see the live waveforms and so on. Then the student goes for each module into a virtual sedation suite where their mastery of the concepts is assessed. So here's a picture of a patient in the virtual sedation suite. And again, all of these objects and the patient are very interactive. Lots of things that the student has to do to show that they've mastered the material. And then they go back to the conference room to take a little exam. So just to summarize as I wind up, the SST curriculum is modular. In our case, it has 9 modules. It covers things like sedation pharmacology, airway assessment, pre-procedure evaluation, and so on. It provides sedation training that is standardized and fairly comprehensive. It's about a 1/2 to 1 day experience when you complete all the modules. So it's a substantial investment of time. It's scientifically grounded. It's consistent with practice guidelines and so on. So this model could be applied to many other training challenges. Now, there are some limitations. It's not training about anesthesia. It's not for pediatrics, although it certainly could be modified to be such. It's not ACLS, as I mentioned earlier. It's not resuscitation training, it's sedation training. And it's not specialty specific, although you could include a module for some important specialty. Okay, so as I wrap up, what are the other virtual preceptorships that could be envisioned? There are dozens and dozens of them. Trauma triage is one, a chest pain workup, rapid response team evaluation, acute asthma or status asthmaticus sort of workup. If you look at our experience, we've now had 25,000 students complete the course, including many thousands from the University of Utah that we partner with, and there's no charge to University of Utah practitioners. That's part of our partnership. There are many scores of institutions, including some very prominent institutions, the University of Washington, Stony Brook State University of New York, and many other institutions that you would recognize. And there are dozens of countries that have students that have jumped onto our platform. Now, I'll finish with just this little movie, which doesn't seem to be starting automatically. So perhaps you could click that. It was intended to start automatically, but maybe on this platform it's not. Doesn't look like it's going to run. Well, I was going to show you the video, and it shows you how interactive it is. You'll see the bag mask ventilation occurring and that kind of thing in the various environments. But I put this forward really just to make you aware that there's an interesting platform that you could explore that I think could be quite useful for various clinical training challenges. Thanks very much.